wink, wink. If anyone says I said this, I'll deny it. But you can sometimes negotiate some of those terms with a franchisor. I'm not saying I did a handstand and cartwheels and celebrated every Thursday when my royalty fees were taken out of my bank account.
Prior to owning a franchise, I had failed businesses. Welcome to the Zero to Profitable Franchise Podcast, the best place for you to come to figure out the right franchise to buy and how to get and stay profitable. My name is Tariq Johnson, and I've bought, grown, and sold multiple franchises and got myself free from corporate America, and now I'm on a mission to help you do that too. Here you'll find some of the most in-depth profitable franchise secrets, tangible strategies, and specific mindsets to help you create your dream life through franchising. All right, guys, so let's talk about the topic of royalties. So the reason why we're talking about this is I recently had a conversation with someone, and they were telling me about how they had recently looked into buying a franchise. Not recently, a few years ago, they looked into buying a franchise, and they just didn't understand how royalties worked. And this whole idea of paying 6 or 7 or 8%, to a franchisor. And it was clear to me that it was just an innocent question that they had, not necessarily like, hey, I don't want to pay someone that amount, but like, what do I actually get for it and how does that work? So, Marc, what what is the point of royalties? How do they work? How are they structured? Give us a high level overview first and then kind of your take on it.
Yeah. And it's really a very good topic because people who come to us really have never even thought of franchising. So they don't know, nor should they know, right? It's not a bad question because they need to know. The people who come in arrogantly saying there's no way I would pay royalties, those are the people you say, then you should go start your own business. But those are a minority of the people. The people are asking, and what I say to them is this, and I use my example. I was a franchise owner. We did a lot of homework in finding our brand. And at the end of the day, what I say is we were really glad to pay these royalties every week because of what we were getting in return for those royalties spent. So what a royalty is, so to buy a franchise, Tariq and Chris, you pay a franchise fee when you start. That's a predetermined amount of your investment. That's essentially your deposit, and you pay that, and that goes to the franchisor. They don't get to keep much of that. Most of that gets spent. They're not making money on your franchise fees. And then you're going to start as a franchise owner. You're going to start with training and development and marketing and everything that you're going to need to know to be successful in your business that the franchisor is obligated to offer and provide. But they have to somehow pay their people. They have to be a thriving business as well. And really the only opportunity they have as franchisors to make any revenue is by charging for their services, just like you as a franchise owner are going to charge people for your services. It's the same thing. The good news is it's a flat rate. It's always a flat rate. And more people now are getting smarter, and they're saying, franchisors, and they're saying, wow, when we get people who are up to $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, it's not fair for them to pay that 6%. So you even have opportunities now for those royalties to go down based on your performance. But you build it into your business financial model. It's a cost to your business. I call it an investment in your business like anything else, because if you pay that, say, 6% royalty, at the end of the year, you should make a lot more than that 6% number as a result of the services and the support you get from the brand. So royalties are never going away. And if you really are serious about owning a franchise, you should embrace those royalties. I'm not saying I did a handstand and cartwheels and celebrated every Thursday when my royalty fees were taken out of my bank account, but I knew I could then rely on what I was getting back in return, and it far outweighed the amount of money I was spending in royalties. So I guess I'll stop there. I'm curious to hear what Chris has to say, but that's my take on royalties.
Yeah, and Chris, before you jump in, your perspective is a lot different, having been a franchisor. So yeah, I'm really curious to kind of hear your take and perspective on it from that vantage point. Hey, so I recently put together a list of 5 low-cost franchises that make $1 million or more. If you want to see that list, then click the link below in the description or go to franchiseempire.com/low cost. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, exactly what Marc's saying. Franchisors are always reinvesting that royalty into their system, into their support, their training. Nowadays, it's actually getting reinvested into their technology. Royalties are an important part of anybody's system. If you're going into that franchise system, obviously you have a lot of faith in the brand, the training, the support, and the good franchisors that are out there. And like I said, I'm not speaking for 100% of them, but at the end of the day, they are reinvesting that money into making sure that they have the necessary talent, leadership. So those are all reinvested. So it's an important part. Like Mark said, you're not jumping up and down to pay that 6, 7, or 8%. But on the back end, you're kind of like looking at it saying, what am I getting in return? And it's called speed, talent, leadership, all those things with the brands that, especially the brands we work with, we really factored those things in because that's a huge piece of the puzzle. You can buy any brand you want, but if you don't have the talent that's behind it, it's going to help you push your business along. You're going to find like, man, I wish, they would take that money and put it towards some good talent. And that's what they do. And that's where that money goes. But I always love that. They're always continuing to invest.
Mark was talking about an entry point that you were.
Yeah, I think where we started losing you is when you made the comment about how people aren't excited to pay the royalties. However, that's where we kind of lost you.
Well, people are not, obviously, just like Mark, you said earlier, a lot of people are not real excited about paying their franchising fee or their royalty. But the reality is that goes back into the system. As a past franchisor, we reinvest in talent, reinvest in, technology, systems, everything you can possibly do to support. Obviously, a lot of franchisors have support coaches that goes to the pay with those coaches that actually go to, help people hold their hands, the franchisees. So it's a valuable piece of the puzzle, but it's a piece of puzzle you have to make sure that the system continues to grow and is a healthy system, especially in the technology and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And so just to kind of bring it back to a higher level at some point for these folks that are listening is, you have percentage-based royalties, right? Which you can pay a percentage of your sales. Some franchisors have fixed royalties where you're just paying a flat $500 a month, $1,000 a month. So there are a lot of different structures. And then you have your marketing or advertising fees, which are typically a percentage. And you would consider those royalties as well. So, again, like you guys said, it's really what are you getting in return for the royalties, which becomes a very important question for you to ask when you're doing your franchisee validation, talking to other franchisees as you're going through the due diligence and buying process is, hey, do you feel like you're getting value from the royalties you're paying? If a majority of the people you speak to say yes, hey, yeah, the franchisor to support me anytime I have an issue, they call me, they send out my business coach to me, once a year, twice a year, whatever it is. And that can become very helpful. From my vantage point, my perspective, and my story that a lot of people may or may not be familiar with is that prior to owning a franchise, I had 8, 9 failed businesses where I would get stuck, I would get confused, I would get overwhelmed. And for me, the value of the franchisor of being able to just hold my hand every step along the way, or when I had a challenge, a challenge that would normally hold me up for weeks and trying to figure it out, or just being stuck or overwhelmed, I could pick up the phone and now I had the answer within minutes. And to me, that was all well worth it. But to be fair, guys, there are some franchises where it's not worth it. And that's where the due diligence is really important. And talking to the other franchisees are important because not every franchise is created equally. And some franchisors give you a much better bang for your buck for your 7% than others. And it's your responsibility to find that out in due diligence. And that's, one of the things that Chris and Mark, as, brokers on our team, help people do.
I'd also add one other point on royalties that gets a little convoluted sometimes as well. And that is that some of the brands have minimum royalties. So in some cases, you'll have to pay X amount of money each month, regardless if you have the sales to back that up. But normally when that's done, there's a ramp up period of time that they give you to make that happen. And in some cases, some brands, I can think of a couple that they'll give 6 months as an incentive. They'll say you don't have to pay royalties for the first 3, 4, 5, or 6 months until you get set up. So there's a lot of ways to utilize royalties as an advantage to a franchise owner. And wink, wink. If anyone says I said this, I'll deny it. But if you do, you can sometimes negotiate some of those terms with a franchisor. I've seen that happen as well, where, hey, would you let me go 3 months without paying royalties to get up and running? I'm not advocating it. I'm not saying they're going to say yes, but my point is some of that is a conversation you have with the brand as you get closer to the finish line. Because again, if there's minimums or there's not minimums and you want to take advantage of that, you can, but it's not always just this percentage. And again, if you're going to invest in a franchise, I always laugh at this. People are saying, why am I going to have to pay a minimum? I'm like, if you're worried about your minimum franchise payment, royalty payment, you really should keep your money and go do something else, because that's not the question you should ever be asking anybody. What about the minimum? My goodness, that's not a way to get on the short list of people who want you as a franchisee either.
I would like to throw in there too is, the ad fund. Ad fund is one of those things that kind of comes out of nowhere too, because some people are like, well, wait a minute, what am I paying for this national ad fund? When we were franchising our business, we never collected the ad fund. It was in their agreement, but because this was a long time ago, this was before social media, digital were really at the cusp of where it's at now. It was really hard to basically say, I'm putting that money towards your localness. It's different now. I tell everybody now when I'm talking to candidates, I say, listen, that local fund, that local advertising, it's going to you. We are now in a digital world where we are local no matter where we're at in the country, and it's being well spent in regards to social media, Instagram, TikTok, and all those things. So you actually do see the value of that, where some people are like, I don't know the value. Back then, yes. Now it is definitely worth those 1, 2, 2.5, whatever that percentage is now. Yeah.
Yeah. And a last thing I'll say on it is what happens is people are asking all these questions, Tariq, to your point, when they haven't started anything about due diligence. As you get more affiliated with a brand, as you get aligned with a brand, as you take more and more meetings and learn more and more, that concern about royalty tends to alleviate itself, because now you're saying, my goodness, I could really see myself doing well here. And this is the cost of doing business. So it really becomes an issue you got to tackle more in the beginning than toward the middle or near the end, because then they get it. But it's a very legitimate question, and it's one of the top things that people are very concerned about when they join us for the first time.